Thank the distinguished representative of the European Union for his statement. I'm now moving to the Partners in Population and Development. Mr. Joe Thomas, Executive Director, you have the floor.
Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to make a brief statement on behalf of Partners in Population and Development at this 46th session of the Commission. The Partners in Population and Development is, most of you know, is an intergovernmental organization of 25 developing countries, accounting over 27% of the world population. It was established in line with the recommendation of the International Conference on Population Development Program of Action as a Southern-run intergovernmental organization in 1994. Since then, PPD has been relentless in its advocacy efforts in enhancing political will and commitment for family planning and sexual and reproductive health rights and other demographic issues of its member countries, underpinned by its prime mandate for promoting South-South cooperation. PPD's mandate is also to train and deploy global leaders as voices of the South, identify and share best practices, broker commodities and reduce regulatory barriers to improve reproductive health commodity security, and develop the next generation of population and reproductive health leaders from the global South. I would like to briefly mention that PPD is fully committed to support the follow-up to ICPD program of action. In support of this commitment, PPD, in partnership with the government of Bangladesh, organized an interministerial conference in November 2012 with the theme of Evidence for Action, South-South Collaboration for ICPD Beyond 2014, which was attended by over 130 high-level policymakers from 25 countries. The conference outcome, entitled as Dhaka Declaration, adopted by the PPD member countries, represents key commitments and recommendations for a reinvigorated implementation of ICPD Program of Action Beyond 2014 and Post-2015 Development Agenda. As a follow-up to the Dhaka Declaration, PPD would hold the next consultative meeting in the third week of October 2013 to be hosted by the government of China in Beijing. Mr. Chairman, the special theme for this Commission on international migration is particularly relevant and timely as it brings into the forefront of global phenomena that confronts most countries of the world. The magnitude of the phenomena of international migration is becoming more complex with expanded scope and diverse impact. Global statistics reflects that the number of international migrants has grown from an estimated 155 million in 1990 to 240 million in 2010, has increased by 40% and is expected to continue to rise, which would have significant consequences for both at countries of origin and host countries. Over time, migration patterns are also becoming increasingly diverse, and most countries are now at the same time countries of origin, destination, and transit. Also, international migrants are moving over greater distance than in the past. However, in Africa, Asia, and Latin America and the Caribbean, a majority of resident migrants continue to originate from within the same region, where PPD member countries are from. Changing global economic, political, demographic, and social conditions affect migratory patterns, composition, and size of the immigrant population. The combined effect of expanded global mobility, dynamics of migratory patterns, and multifaceted impact pushed international migration as an issue of policy concern at the national and international fora. PPD recalls that migration phenomena was recognized as an important issue in the ICPD Program of Action, which states that migration is an important part in the economic transformation occurring around the world, and they present serious new challenges. Therefore, these issues must be addressed with more emphasis within the population and development policies. International migration was gradually integrated as part of the UN Development Agenda at various international conferences and summits, culminating in the 2006 high-level dialogue at the General Assembly, followed by an informal thematic debate in 2011. These events brought out further evidence that international migration could significantly contribute to the poverty reduction, provided that global communities work in spirit of partnership and enhance effort to protect the rights and strengthen the capacities of the migrant population. A recent UN report, Realizing the Future We Want for All, identified migration as an important demographic trends that will impact the implementation of the post-2015 Sustainable Development Agenda. PPD would also like to underline the concern that vulnerable groups of migrants, such as migrant women, children, adolescents and youths, undocumented migrants, domestic workers, and temporary and low-skilled migrant workers are widely underprotected, especially with respect to their labor rights, social security, social protection, right to mobility, right to family life, access to justice, healthcare, and other public services. Mr. Chairman, PPD urges for the migrant responsive policies and want to reiterate the following major policy options. Ensure that migrants are considered as agents of sustainable development. Ensure human rights and non-discrimination towards migrants, especially to women and vulnerable groups, and promote social cohesion of communities through equal wages, working conditions, social benefits, and protection. Ensure that migrants is safe, that adequate protection and assistance are extended to all migrants, in particular to migrants caught in crisis. Promote the preservation and portability of social security entitlements, recognition of educational qualifications and development of skills to better match labor supply and demand within and between countries through comprehensive bilateral, regional and multilateral mechanisms. Ensure that migration, which affects many areas of development, example human rights, health, education, rural and urban development, financing for development and disaster risk reduction, is integrated into the national and sectoral development policies, strategies and programs. Strengthen policy adherence at levels through which the global cooperation includes fostering cooperation among origin, transit and destination countries. Lastly, establish global partnership including South-South cooperation in the post-2015 framework to ensure that migration contributes to equitable and sustainable development. In closing, PPD want to express its satisfaction and happy to note that in the process of defining the post-2015 development agenda, a broad consultation on important linkages between migration and development has already begun. PPD urges to integrate migration fully into this new agenda, with special attention for the most vulnerable population and considering the important contribution of the migrants to sustainable development goals. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Sorry, but I have to remind the delegates to speak in their time limits.